Hello, and welcome to our panel discussion on piracy in sports. We're gonna discuss with bein and Verimatrix on the state of the nation, what is the problem, and what to do against it.
The problem of piracy is big, and it's getting bigger.
Losses from live event piracy are between hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars.
Piracy means loss of ARPU, but that's not all.
No, that's absolutely not everything. They are also using your CDN.
Are classical countermeasures still good enough today?
The cyber risks come in the form of malware, spyware, and other cyber security compromises.
You need to combine the classical anti-piracy measures with the new measures of cybersecurity because the pirates never sleep.
Hello. Welcome everybody to our panel on live sports piracy. Yes, the pirates never sleep, and we're gonna talk about exactly that. We're gonna talk about the state of the nation. Where are we in piracy? How bad and how big is it? Klaus just mentioned in the trailer, it's big and it's getting bigger. So that's one. Then we look at how do they do it? And of course, then also what are the arrows in our quiver that we could use to fight against them? My name is Andy Waltenspiel. I'm excited to be your moderator here today. Please excuse my voice. That's something I brought from London from a conference, a little gift, but I think I'm going to survive. It makes me sound like a pirate. No, I was told manly. Good. In my day job, I'm advising challengers and thought leaders of the industry to connect the dots, work on go-to-market strategy. Security is also a topic I spent more than 10 years at Nagra in a previous life. But enough about me. Quick words on housekeeping. We're going to record this, of course. You get a link to the recording in a few days from now by email. And of course, you can ask questions. You see a little Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom client. You can send us questions anytime and reserve a bit of time at the end to get to them. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our three panelists. Here they are. We got Lee Kent from beinMedia. Hello, Lee.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We got Masha Malinkovic from Verimatrix. And Klaus Schenk from Verimatrix as well. Hello.
Hello.
Fun fact, Klaus and I worked together more than 20 years ago at a company called Beta Research, who was also in the security business. So the circle closes. Now, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself, your role, and also your company. And maybe Lee, as the guest here, do you maybe want to start?
Thanks very much. Yep, my name's Lee Kent. I'm one of the content protection managers at beinMedia Group. beinMedia Group broadcasts in 40 countries, 9 different languages, covering MENA, APAC, US, and France. We also have partners in Turkey, and bein are a part owner of the studio's Verimatrix. Our challenges, as you can appreciate, are quite broad. And we have some of the most major sports leagues in our portfolio, which are extremely attractive to a wide variety of pirates.
Thank you, Lee. And then, ladies next. Masha, a few words about yourself and Verimatrix, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Masha, and I'm responsible for the Streamkeeper portfolio at Verimatrix. After 15 years in the media industry, I'm now concentrating on Verimatrix's new anti-piracy portfolio, which is fully native cloud. And talking about Verimatrix, Verimatrix is combining the experience from decades of video content protection, pioneering many years ago in smart cardless security, but also dozens of years of experience in cybersecurity. And this is what makes us different. So we are very customer-centric, making the whole security topic a frictionless, people-centered service delivery. We are serving over 1,100 customers across over 120 countries around the world. And we are delivering protection from premium movies to live sports, but also going into the healthcare and finance sector, securing any type of sensitive data via trusted networks and connections to ensure critical applications always work.
Wow. Okay. Impressive. So quite big. So we'll use several of these items today. And Klaus, about you, please, a few words.
I'm Klaus Schenk, responsible at Verimatrix for the security features of our products for threat defense. Me and my team, we analyze and reproduce attacks like the ones pirates are using. Best case, we predict new attacks and map the results into our product features. From what I can see, the piracy problem is getting bigger and is now directly hitting the resources of the distributors.
Okay, let's set the scene, right? So you both, Klaus and Lee, you said in the trailer, it's big, the problem, it's getting bigger. Lee, you were talking about millions, if not billions. So maybe Lee, we start with you. You mentioned some of the most important sport leagues of the planet are managed by your company. So where do we stand in terms of piracy? Give us some insights. What's the state of the nation, as we called it?
Well, when you are the broadcaster of the English Premier League, we have the European Championships. We were the host broadcaster for the World Cup with, high profile competitions like that. They're always going to be desirable for theft, ultimately. And the thieves will use every means necessary to be able to take that content, which ultimately leads to a loss of revenue, not just to the broadcaster, but the entire ecosystem within that sport. And I think a lot of people actually forget that, at the forefront, you do have the broadcaster, which is delivering to the end consumer. But the trickle down from that always goes back to the clubs and the environment. So the loss of revenue, when we talk about millions and billions, it's not just to one entity, it's to a whole ecosystem within that, which reaches right down to grassroots training. And I think it does, in the piracy landscape, and particularly sometimes in the media, that element does get lost. It's just seen as the broadcaster or even the rights owner that ultimately is the loser. But the scale of the problem is that when you broadcast in so many different countries, we are fighting a number of battles across those territories. And that means that we are looking at multiple avenues of taking our content from the different portfolios that we have, and also from the different broadcast processes that we have. We see web piracy, we see set-top box piracy, and we see IPTV piracy. And when you've got such a wide scale of piracy, then it's very difficult to measure it, but it doesn't take much to see how big it is. When you type in, beIN for free into Google, you need to go at least 20 pages, if not more, before you'd even start to think about whether or not you'd exhausted the avenues of trying to find a free web stream. Yeah, it gives you a general perspective of the demand, the reasons for the demand, and taking away the financial element of actually how big the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Verimatrix showed one press release, launched a press release this morning, Europe morning. And maybe Klaus, I saw 300K OPEX savings and it was 21 million in loss of ARPU prevented. Was that the right numbers? That's like impressive. And that's something the operator, the unnamed operator, for the time being, has measured themselves, right? It's not dreamt up numbers.
Yes, it has been measured, and it was a pretty clear temporal coincidence. So there was clear when the piracy started, because the according increased traffic at the content delivery network could be measured. And also there was the time where we could add our solution to the existing security solution. There is need for a holistic approach, of course. And from then on, the additional traffic to the CDN broken immediately. That is pretty much measurable. And also the raise of new customers also picked up immediately. And that's why these numbers are not made up. They are clearly correlated to increasing protection.
Wow. Okay. So there we have numbers from one operator. Masha, you mentioned 1,100 customers that you serve on a global basis. So what do you hear from them? How do they see piracy? Do they also see it growing? Is that the same in all geographies? What's the picture you can paint?
I think media consumption is always very different from region to region. But on a global basis, we can definitely say piracy is rising. And even though we know that the media industry is changing and ever changing, even as I said, like I'm in the business like since 15 years, and it has been changing constantly. But there was really a breakthrough last year when AI tools like large language models became kind of populated everywhere, easily accessible. And that made piracy literally one prompt away. So coming from the professional type of piracy we used to see and to fight previously, it's now accessible to everywhere, to school students, to anybody in this world. And this makes it so extremely hard for people really just to go and chase them down after piracy has happened. As Lee was just saying in the beginning, if you go and start looking for all the offerings you have when you are going into search machines, that's endless. And hunting all of them down is kind of, a lost game. Therefore, there needs to be a different approach. Let's have a very quick look at numbers. So we know that video is responsible for over 65% of the internet volume, and it's constantly rising. We also know from many researchers, but one was published just last month by Musso and Kearney, that over 140 billion visits were only to piracy websites last year. 140 billion. And most of them in the US and in India. If we just very quickly think about the revenue loss to the industry, we can see that if we can recover only 25% of these lost revenues, that would amount to almost 20 billion US dollars annually in revenue for pay TV providers and for video platforms themselves. And last but not least, what we are seeing today is, and that's numbers which we are hearing really from all our customers and also from other partners, be it at AAPA or others, that CDN leakage is huge. And that means when I'm talking about CDN leakage, we are talking of almost 30%, which are estimated to going to piracy only.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. I mean, when we prepared this, we looked for the analogy, right? I mean, you secure your house, you has a lot of windows and the drawbridge and the roof. But if we think now that the pirates even use your CDN, it's like you pay for their escape taxi. You pay the bill. They steal stuff, they come in, they drive away, and you pay for it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk a bit about how our content stolen. I mean, Lee, you mentioned it's several types of piracy. It's the set-top box, smart cards, yeah, they're still somewhere, but it's not the majority. So what are the, let's say, the main attack vectors these days? Where do they come in?
Yeah, so I mean the OTT platform is an easy access. There are a number of holes across the OTT platform. We can start by looking at the fact that all broadcasters are tied into a multi-DRM solution. We have to take Microsoft, we have to take Apple, and we have to take Google's solution. Their lowest scale encryption has issues. I think the industry are well aware of that. Geographically, we can't rule out an L3 encryption. We have a demographic of audience that just can't financially keep up with the latest and greatest devices that can handle the most secure encryption. So we do have to make low-level encryptions within the multi-DRM sphere available to that. So there we have an instant issue straight away there. We're broadcasting using L3, which we know has significant flaws. The more clever and the more divisive pirates, they will, as you said, they will also not just make use of that flaw, but they'll go that one step further and they'll actually cost us even more money, not just the loss of the viewership, but they'll also cost us the loss by using our CDNs to take our assets and broadcast them to the end users. And that kind of one-to-many audience, and all we're getting back is one subscription and a huge bill for our CDN costs. But because of how we are wedded to those environments and those devices, it's a necessity that we have to harden that attack service and that environment. And then you are relying and you use the services of organizations like Verimatrix to be able to support you within that. Because otherwise, you may as well forget about raising the drawbridge. You may as well forget about putting the bars on the windows, and you may as well just lay everything out on a table for somebody to come along and pick up, as they choose to when they want. And that's not a business model at the end of the day. No. And it comes back to the point that I said before. There's an ecosystem there that goes from the end user right back to the grassroots that's supported by this, and you have to use the best tools in the business.
Yeah. I want to hear also from thank you, Lee. I want to hear also from Klaus. So we talked about CDN, we talked about multiple things. So what are do you have a highlight of how is it done, like a ranked list of which of the exploits are mostly done, or how do you track it? I mean, you track thousands of things, and with AI it's even get worse.
So I agree with Lee that streaming is the lowest hanging fruit. So of course, all the classical attacks are still done on smart cards, on set-top boxes, but on streaming, we have the lowest hanging fruit for several reasons. One of the reasons is that in the old times of the set-top boxes, the authentication of the end user was really done by snail mail. The set-top box, including the keys, was shipped to the end consumer. Now the end consumer for streaming, they want to use their devices everywhere, and whatever device they just have, iPhone, other phones, tablets, TVs, browsers, for example, all of that is what they want to use. And the authentication often is done by tokens they receive after login. That is something like an often anonymous electronic ticket. And with these tokens, then the according license keys are requested, and the licenses can be the license keys or the keys for the contents can be extracted from that. And once the keys are there, And in this scenario, they are quite easy to extract. The tokens can be extracted then after one more hop, the keys, or directly the keys can be extracted from a manipulated environment. And as Masha has said, this knowledge on how to do that is pretty public, and it's even easier to get in times of AI. And when the keys are out, and the streaming content, the encrypted one, is still available at the CDN, the pirates can directly leech this content from the CDN and use the distributed keys. That makes a very attractive business model for them. But of course, pirates are also in their traditional business, and that is, I think, mostly stream ripping that is still done, and redistribution via IPTV. But the fastest growing is for sure the CDN leeching and the extraction of keys, because it's a very attractive business model for the pirates. They don't have to pay for the distribution, but the others are still in there. So my hit list would be streaming exploits, including CDN leech, is the fastest growing and the easiest to do. Stream ripping is always doable, but it is taking a lot of resources on the pirate side.
More complex. Yeah.
And of course, all the classical attacks, fully loaded Cody is still, of course, on the list, and it's happening.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of opportunities. I'm at the conference last week in London, Connected TV World Summit. We saw a few times mention piracy, and said one, it was Jon Espen Nørgaard from the CTO of Valente Nordics, said it was 23% rise in piracy in the Nordics. More than 1 million people in the small Nordic territory have paid piracy subscriptions, and they become the super aggregator because they have access to all the metadata, they have access to all the content in a shockingly great UI, and it is really a problem. So let's turn to what shall we do? What are the arrows in the quiver? We talked about the drawbridge, and I like that, and the bars on the window. So what should the house owners, the content owners, what should they do? Where should they start? Who wants to go first?
I'll go with this. I'll pick this one up. I think it can't just be one organization. If we're going to stick with the house analogy, then you can have the best security in the world, but inside, if you've all got the same furniture, the same TV, they're just going to go to the neighbors and take that. And you might be sitting there quite nice, but your neighbors have had all of their content stolen. So it's got to be an industry approach, and there has got to be, without breaching any competition rules, there has got to be industry standards. And I think that we talk a lot about industry standards. I think the practice of it is particularly lacking, and that we do, certainly from bein's point of view, because we have. We're very lucky to have a lot of major rights across a number of territories. We do see that when we take a very specific action, the pirates turn to the weakest link, and they'll steal from our neighbor. And that doesn't help with the piracy issue at all, which is why we still see piracy increasing. We still see the loss revenues increasing. And it's about finding a service that fits with your organization. And I appreciate, that there are cost implications around that. But your ROI and, working with organizations like Verimatrix, as has already been said, you can demonstrate your ROI. With those figures, you then convince your CFO and your board to be able to implement some of these services. So you can harden your CDN. You can have more visibility into your streams from your CDN to secure devices and your consumers. And it's about the ability to pick that up, visualize it, have teams that can analyze that data, and then kill those sources. And once you start doing that, then yes, they will move to the next soft target. But if everybody's doing it, then it just makes it harder and harder, and the sources of piracy become less and less and less. And then you have to then start to think of other legal revenue avenues to be able to tackle these issues. But your technology and your technical environment is as secure as it possibly can be.
Okay. Is it so difficult to bring all the industry players together? Because, I mean, the problem is big, the problem is growing, it's everywhere. At cost of living crisis, people are even, which is strange, they don't steal their gas, they don't steal electricity, like you said in the prep call, Lee. But still they steal, okay, I go to pirate website. Why is it so difficult to bring all the content owners at one table and say, this is the way we want to go? Is it such a complex task?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. Go on, Marsha, I'll let you pick this up.
No, sure. I think it is because, of course, on the one hand side, they're all our competitors. But on the other hand side, most of the big players in this world are coming from the traditional business. And they still didn't have this complete mind change of seeing the threats of the new world, of this world of the wild, wild web, right? So, and what we need to understand that actually it not just touches the certain studio because the content is losing value, but it really touches every single provider in the end. They are losing money on their CDN being exploited. They are losing money, even more money than the CDN they are losing on the value of the content if it's easily available on the networks. And I think what everybody strategically needs to understand that it's not a lost battle. It's not. We just need to understand how to gain back the control which was lost and make sure that the solutions which we are looking into are not just about catching leaks as they're happening, because then we will keep running again after the pirates, which is enormously time and resource consuming. But we need to have transparency. We need to see the problem, we need to monitor, and we need to use the data and the knowledge, ideally using AI tools to make risk assessments to understand what's next and be prepared, meaning preventing and predicting piracy and acting in a future-driven manner and not just reacting to what is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Klaus can explain a bit more in detail what the multi-layered approach here might be, coming back to
because
what we just said.
In the trailer, Klaus, I think you mentioned we need to combine classical and cybersecurity. What do you mean?
So maybe first, to your original question, so what makes it difficult to unite? I want to mention that I see an opportunity in united industry by the fact that now the burden is more equally distributed between distributors and content owners by the CDN leeching. And I think that could create more awareness and put us all a little bit closer together with regards to the piracy. So I see that also as an opportunity, the raising impact of the piracy. And now back to your question on what cybersecurity could help here. It's like that we mentioned at the beginning, the streaming as the lowest hanging fruits that is exploited by the pirates. One of the attacks was abusing and manipulating the tokens. Other attacks are manipulating the environment of the video player in order to steal the content keys directly, or to steal, in the end, the streamed content. That are the usual attack vectors. And of course, still watermarking is needed. Still, a DRM is needed for the transport of the keys. But in order to cover the rest of the attack vectors, it's good to merge the means of cybersecurity with the classical video security tools in order to, for example, prevent that tokens can be stolen by man-in-the-middle attacks or by debugging the application. And that can be done by applying an app protection with video-specific features around all the apps. It needs to cover the whole bandwidth of different apps. And that is not only the passive protection that will not last. We all know that it will not last forever. So it must be combined with the monitoring that says, when there is building up a threat, and also is able to identify where this threat is coming from. So we see the thieves coming in the analogy, and we would renew our protection once we see that the first fractures are in the protection, and that can be done in the so-called polymorphic way. That means the hackers or the attackers have to start from scratch. And what Masha has mentioned is to combine this monitoring with AI and ML that would help us to have this predictive item in a more automated way that takes away the burden from the staff. And also, of course, the whole protection needs to be possible to apply with a low effort. Otherwise, not all the different items can be covered with different browsers, apps, and so on and so on. So that is meant with combining cybersecurity with classical video security, and it's an add-on to the existing infrastructure, but it can be a very efficient one.
Okay. Lee, you have another hat. You have your being hat. You have another one. You want to talk about that one as well and what you're doing there, the APA?
APA. So yeah, APA is the Audiovisual Anti-Piracy Association. We have quite a broad member list, Verimatrix being one of them. So we have vendors, rights owners, and broadcasters who are part of that. And collectively, we do share information. We regularly talk about industry challenges and problems. We have various work streams, legal, technical, and operational. Within the legal sphere, it's very, unfortunately, it's very European centric. So we lobby the European Commission and the European Union for better copyright legislation, along with organisations, which has also supported the implementation of the Digital Services Act, which is now being tested in its fullest around Europe. But from a technical and operational point of view, again, working with the vendors and trying as best we can without, again, breaching competition laws, sharing best practices and the expectations. CDN leakage is something that has been talked about a lot, and we share, certainly between the broadcasters, share our experiences and how we achieve that, and work with vendors to harden or at least give a good understanding of how the services or surface needs to be hardened. Going back to my point before, we have to accept multi-DRM. There's no way around it. So how do we fill those gaps? How do we work with our partners in APA to fill those gaps? What are the technologies out there? Klaus mentioned cybersecurity earlier. Within APA, and Verimatrix is on board with this, and along with a number of other partners within APA, we're starting to look at the kind of Achilles heel and trying to draw lines between the cybersecurity world and the anti-piracy world. What are the attack vectors between these two worlds? Is there synergies there? Do they use the same hosting companies? What are the little elements there that kind of combine both those aspects? It's been long written, and there's been numerous studies to say that if you view a pirate website, there's a high risk that your laptop or device could be compromised with malware or spyware or any of those other things. As an industry, we're well aware of that. I think consumers, they accept a little bit of risk. But how do these two communities actually meet and discuss? And for whatever reason, it's not an element that we've really explored before. And it's not a new topic, but it is definitely a new focus that we're now starting to take and to work on. It's taken a little bit of time to open our eyes up to it, but we are moving forward with that, which I think is being driven by a lot of these studies, the work that Verimatrix has been doing and highlighting, and APA's position, if we can get some credible information around that, would be ultimately to kind of release a paper about it. So yeah, as an industry, in certain aspects, as an industry, we're not particularly great at working together, but in other aspects, when we do kind of get the bit between our teeth and we can run with it, then we will form a good working group and produce some good work.
Well, because that's exactly what in good warfare is divide and conquer. So as long as you guys don't speak among each other, the pirates will have an endless fiesta and they will steal more.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's, I think, part of the reason why we're doing this today. It's education. It's educating the market. There is help. I mean, we saw the press release this morning. So one lucky operator already saves a bit. But yeah, it's not saving the planet yet. Which brings me to one of my favorite questions that you probably know already and have prepared. So I'll start with you, Lee. If I get you $100 million, what would you do with it? For beIN or APA, you can choose, but not for bikes and boats, unfortunately.
I think for $100 million, I would rewrite the entire rule book of industry standards and make it either contractual or some form of legal obligation that everybody had to conform to it. Like I say, it comes back to the original point. You can't have one organization doing it. It's an all or nothing. So yes, that's what I would do with my $100 million.
If
there was any use, I might buy some additional sports rights as well.
Yes. Once you barred the windows and put the drawbridge up. But, it seems like we said there was 20 million savings for that Latin American operator. So 100 million doesn't seem a lot. So if you do a bit, you can achieve that. So maybe, Lee, you should go ahead. I won't give you the 100 million, but you will find them somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
But okay, I want to also ask the question to Klaus and Masha. So what would you / Verimatrix do with 100 million?
Well, obviously, I cannot speak for all of Verimatrix, but from my perspective with the security head, of course, I would say we don't need 100 million. We need much less than that. But we could equip a bunch of 10 operators with a full set of security measures, just to demonstrate if you go the whole spectrum. And I think with 10 million, you can easily equip 10 operators. Then you would already see a significant raise of your income in the sense that we have discussed in the beginning. And seeing that should trigger, hopefully, the unification of the industry. So I would just take a bit and do some reference installations and show an example.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And Masha?
I would invest into a borstal for former hackers, make them use or make them work for Verimatrix. No, just kidding. I think what I really would love to do is invest in educating people and making the internet a really more secure space, because piracy is happening in most cases because people are not seeing the whole impact it has. And I think this needs to start early. It needs not even to start in educating children. It needs a start in educating parents, to educate the children, to educate the grown-ups, and to make actually really the absolute incredible rich and wealth of the internet a secure and positive space for everybody.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so big plans, 100 million. Let's see how far you get. Okay, Klaus needs less. That's great. Run. Dear audience, if you have any questions for us, this is the time. Please send us your question using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll happily get to them. I'll read them to the audience if there's any. In the meantime, let's do a quick recap, right? So problem is big and getting bigger. It's million, if not billions lost. The attack surface is huge. But I want to give you the word as well. So maybe just recap in 2-3 sentences. What is it that the viewers, the operators should take away from this panel discussion? Like 1-2 highlights. And ladies first, Masha.
Of course. So I think the most important thing is it's not a lost battle. It needs really taking your own responsibility because it's your own money that is lost. Start acting now and not just reacting.
Okay, thank you. And Klaus.
Keep the existing measures of video security intact. Add measures of cybersecurity. Do not only protection, but also monitoring. Then we are on a good way.
Okay, and Lee.
Adhere to minimum industry standards. Don't just rely on one set of tools. There's a whole suite of tools available from a variety of vendors. But yeah, work together, collaborate where you can, and use the tools available to you.
Makes a lot of sense. So here are a few questions. So there's one from Rushdie Hassan. He says, he or she, sorry, I don't know whether it's male or female. So for a service provider, especially a small tier 3 service provider, what is it that we can do that is cost effective to address TV subscription piracy, especially in a market where there's limited regulation? We talked a bit about that. So you need to lobby also the government and legislation. But yeah, what do you think? So small tier 3 service provider, what can you do cost effective in a tough market?
I mean, it's quite an open question. There's several things that I would suggest, and it obviously depends on your on your environment. Some of the simple tools that we use, we always make sure one of the easy means for piracy is through social media. So one of the things that we do and we push a lot is to have good cooperation with the social media platforms and use the tools that they provide us. They're for free. It takes a little bit of resources to be able to do the referencing for those. So using Meta's and Google's content referencing does have a positive impact, both video and audio referencing. So that's always a good start. But again, you know, it will always depend on what your revenue streams are, how much you're prepared to spend. There is always, in my experience of nearly 20 years in anti-piracy, there is always a price point with a vendor out there that can help in some way.
Okay, good. Thank you, Lee, for that. Yeah, Klaus?
I would add that a good analysis of what clients give you the best reach would be good, because it is, of course, more difficult to protect a wide infrastructure of many different clients. So if you can start with only web or only Android and iOS clients, for example, then it's easier to keep that secured compared to going on all different platforms. So that would be my suggestions, to analyze what gives you the best reach and to focus on that.
Okay. So another question here is from George Waits. He stresses the fact that people have less and less money, so it's a bit the cost of living crisis, and the fragmentation that is, again, driven by the OTT/SVOD players. It's tougher to find something to watch. I need to subscribe to 8 or 10 or whatever services to get everything I want to watch. So is this maybe partly a homegrown problem? If we don't solve fragmentation, we will not solve the cost of living crisis, probably. But if we don't solve the fragmentation, will this only get worse? So is the industry sort of a bit responsible itself?
I would not say so.
Okay.
Because as we are learning, really, the industry is struggling massively because of piracy. It's not the way around. And this is why the prices are increasing. This is why content rights holders are forced to sell to different platforms. It's not the way that the industry just decides to increase prices or segregate more and more, but it's rather the way that piracy does so much damage in the end to the industry that they are really forced into going into these very consumer unfriendly models. And I also believe that there are very consumer friendly models starting to gain business by combining different offerings from different platforms into one. And you have to be, for your region, really on the lookout for the right offering for you. But there is a lot going on in the business, and I'm pretty sure that this will be solved in the future as well.
Yeah.
I would add that since the main topic of this webinar is sports, if you look at sports, it was never like that it was only one provider giving that, and there was always the piracy problem. So while I could see that some piracy pressure would go away, I don't see that sports that would be true for sports or was ever true for sport.
Okay.
Klaus is right. The fragmentation element of it is heavily focused for the moment on the entertainment industry. Sport has been, geographically placed to different broadcasters.
But makes sense.
When it comes to the kind of cost of living crisis, and you are looking at the different options that you have available, from legitimate to the piracy services, you have to question yourself, why is a pirate subscription €20 a month, compared to a legitimate service? The pirates want to make money. They are charging you €20 because they don't have to pay for CDN. They don't have to pay for security services. They don't have to pay the rights owners. It all goes straight into their pocket, and then potentially onto other criminality as well. So, you've got to look at that. There are other pirate business models. Again, coming back to websites, you don't just open a pirate website and it's just presented straight away, the piece of content. There's ads, there's other things going on in the background. You know, these pirates aren't just doing it for free. They're making revenue out of it. This is not, you know, some young teenager sitting in his basement, you know, recording stuff and then broadcasting it. These are business models. These are people who want to make money, and they want to make a lot of money, and they will do it by any means necessary.
Good. Looking at the clock, last question. It's from an anonymous attendee, and the question is, what percentage of companies you talk to are not aware of these new threats coming in via mobile apps? So that's a question, I think, for Klaus and Masha. So you talk to clients, are they like, I should secure my app? Good point. I mean, is that something that still happens? Or
Yes.
is the majority sort of educated?
So I would say, I would answer the question a bit differently. Most of our customers or platforms we are talking to, they know they have a problem, or at least they suspect they have a problem, and they think the problem is on the CDN side. Most of them don't realize where it's coming from, or they are not quite sure how to handle it. So many of them are turning to the CDN providers to fix it, which might not necessarily be the best idea, not because I don't trust the CDN providers. I totally trust they are doing a good job, but actually, if they succeed in helping, they will lose business. We just need to understand that. So it's probably not the exact right person to talk to.
Yeah.
And to understand where the piracy is coming from, you need to go one step further. And I need to admit, unfortunately, we see that 90% of the video streaming apps are still open and unprotected.
90%.
90%.
Wow. That's massive.
Maybe with some basic obfuscation in it, but which can be really broken within minutes.
Okay. We just found 100 million for Lee. Wow. Okay. So here, dear questionnaire, you have your answer. 90% think they're great, and the drawbridge, they don't even have one. They don't even have a little, I don't know how to call it, the river around your castle.
No.
Thank you very much for being here. We are wrapping it up. A fantastic discussion. Obviously, we could continue for quite a while longer. Here, the topic is big. It's growing. Thank you, Lee, for being with us, bringing the insights from BN. Thank you, Masha and Klaus. Great discussion. And dear audience, if you have more questions, find us on LinkedIn, send us questions, and I'm sure you'll get an answer. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.